Day one of the first test between India versus England is over. England are on 263 for three, with Joe Root making an unbeaten 128. But it didn't go all England's way, with India picking up the wicket of Dom Sibley on the final ball of the day. This is the Murali End Daily, supported by Sam's Chicken and Lion Beer. I'm Mark Machado, and I'm joined by Tommy Stewart, James Sarek, Owen Blackhurst, and Luke Wills. Lads, I think there's only one place to start here. That's really Joe Root's phenomenal knock, isn't it? On his 100th cap, 100th test, he finishes the day on 128. It looks like the only thing that's going to bother him is his own body giving up on him. And I mean, you can't really blame that because it is flipping hot and humid in Chennai. And he had the same problem in Sri Lanka as well. None of the Indian bowlers seem to have any kind of answer to what he was offering today.
Yeah, and cricket is, as we all know, especially for batsmen, cricket is a sport of averages, selfish numbers, averages, and what a way for England's Test captain to mark his 100th cap by stealing the show, rightly so. But I did tweet from the Murali End before saying, and it's not that much of a bold prediction given the way he started the year, but Joe Root will be the number one Test batsman by the end of the year. I think he's there's this whole the whole Big Four thing, and people were saying, and to be fair, Babar Azam has had another great knock the other day. But for me, he's nowhere near that. Like, Joe Root never really left that Big Four for me, and he's right up there again with the daddy runs. And I feel like it's his year. It's not a bold thing to say with his form, as I said, but I feel like it's his year as captain, not just as a player. And I've just got I don't know how we'll do in this series, but with the shit show that is Australian cricket at the moment, I've got a really good feeling about the Ashes later on.
Yeah, and what a fantastic marker to put down, though, to bat first in this series and get 263 on the first day. And that starts to put things in the minds of the Indian bowlers, because if they batted first, gone out and got 300. But go back to Root. KP tweeted about a technical masterclass from Sibley and Root. And one of the first comments was, I'm pretty sure anyone could get a ton on that pitch out there today. It was some bloke like Steve from Skegness. And
Steve from Skegness getting one.
Yeah, I'm sure you'd do that, Steve, in 30 odd degrees with that humidity, and Bumrah and Ashwin bowling, and Ishant Sharma holding a very good line. I just couldn't believe it. You know, you're watching absolute greatness, and you're comparing him to yourself, who probably plays a few Sundays against a load of vicars.
Yeah, can I just?
It could be Steve Smith. To be fair.
Yeah, he's got a VPN. And he set himself in Skegness. No, can I just add to that, right? I've obviously spent a lot of time out in that part of the world, not in Chennai, but in Sri Lanka. And doing anything in that kind of heat is just impossible. Like, I don't understand how people, a lot of people say, why don't they play more football or more, rugby or any other sport in that part of the world? Cricket really lends itself to those conditions because you do spend a lot of time standing about. That's why it's so popular. It's one of the reasons why it's so popular, right? I totally agree with you there, Owen. It is impossible to do anything. I mean, earlier on I said it looks like cramp is going to be the thing that's going to take him, right? Because he's not going to be able to rehydrate overnight in the 12 hours he's got between kind of end of play today and having to bat again tomorrow. It's going to be interesting to see what the England team can do to get him back into tip-top condition to try and get him batting, because you do worry about his wicket tomorrow morning, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a couple of years ago, you remember how hot it was in the summer of 2018 when the World Cup was on? We played a game the day England played Sweden, and our second team were off, all sat in a paddling pool, barracking us. And it was about 35 degrees that day. I think I batted for 2 hours in a lid, which I don't normally wear. And I felt ill for about 4 days afterwards. And, so to do it for that length of time, and Sibley as well, we've got to give Sibley some credit. I know he got out to the last ball of the day, but there were so many balls towards the end that they weren't even that wide, and you thought he could have gone for them to try and get to his ton, but completely unselfishly just leaving everything outside off stump and going, no, I'm going to stay here. I want to keep Root there. I want to make sure I'm going to go on and get a ton in Root's 100th test as well. It's something to tell the grandkids about, right? Yeah. And it's so unfortunate they didn't, but an absolute shift. I mean, if he plays like that for all his career as an England opener, I don't care if his strike rate's 25, because he will help us win more tests than we'll lose.
James?
So are we collectively worried that an England collapse could be on the cards tomorrow, like talking about roots cramp, and the pitch is obviously going to, well, new ball as well, and the pitch is going to start favouring swing and spin, probably a little bit more.
Someone said, I think, England always back deep, really, and like we obviously we got the extra spinner with this, but Bess is a good little batsman as well. But I'm not too worried when you look at like Ben Stokes, Ollie Pope, Josh Butler. I'm not too worried about that. And even if we do, we've still set we're going pretty well anyway. I just want to say about Sibley, like I totally agree. Owen. I just said to you just before this, didn't I? I said the English Pujara, that's high praise, but that's exactly what we need. And then I remember everyone was saying how he was going too slow. Like not everyone, a couple of people on TMS and Sky saying he was going too slow last summer. I'm sure people probably said it today. I wasn't awake the whole day.
I think it works.
But it's what we need. It's what we fucking needed for absolute. Like we needed this for years, and then people moan that it's boring or slow. I've calmed down a bit now because I did get a bit like angry at him for getting out because the commentators were literally saying he just needs to stay in for the next few balls. But then on review, it was an absolute fucking magic ball by Bumrah. But I've got a real soft spot for him. He seems like, you just like, footballers don't really have it as much anymore. There's very few footballers who do have that, like that lack of, he's taking the piss out of himself when he's being sledged and he's saying, I might not be opening the bat in India because I'm not really being good at Nick. And the way he was quite a big lad, wasn't he? Lost loads of weight because he came into the test team, he saw Jimmy and Broad and how he's like, I wasn't looking after myself. Seen a few things with him where he just seems like quite a funny, like nice lad. He's a United fan and a big hip hop head. So I'm all in for Sibley, like for the next 10 years.
I think he's shown himself to be a great human being as well, because he was never one of the chosen ones. Didn't play a lot of Lions. Left Surrey to go and further his career. And every time a challenge is presented, he goes away and works on it and comes back better. You can't fault that. It's an incredible thing to see. You could see today the way his bat was coming down straighter. I mean, there was a couple of points. He was dancing down the pitch and punching it through mid-wicket like Viv Richards. It was incredible, and so happy for him. Just so happy he seems to be able to overcome these things. And he's going to need that because it's always going to get harder and bowlers are going to try different things against him. But fair play. What a boy.
Yeah. Luke, I was just going to ask, what do you think a good score is for England?
I think where we are at the moment, it's disappointing to lose Sibley late in the day. But if Root can hunker down in the morning, get through the first half an hour or so, hopefully with Stokes, I think over 400 should be the minimum we're aiming for. To be honest, especially with regards to having Stokes, Khan, Pope, and Butler, who are all batsmen who score at a good rate. I think if Root's struggling a bit with his, with the cramp again in the morning, maybe if he just holds up one end and those guys sort of try to keep the scoreboard ticking over. Because I think that was what I sort of saw this morning. As the first hour and a half, 2 hours, we were, it was a sort of backs against the wall job where we had to see off the opening, see off the opening bowlers, see off Ashwin, and then start picking off Washington. I
thought that was the way they played. I was drifting in and out from 4 a.m. I was just like, it's fucking like, I should say it's amazing having it on Channel 4 because I just before I came on this, I was like closing down all my tabs. And I just thought like, continue watching The Simpsons. And I was like, yes, Channel 4, you don't get out of Sky Sports 1. And also, I should say, I love I was messing my older brother before, the one who works for New Balance, please sort us out with a sponsorship and tickets for 100. We love 100. And he said, he's like, oh, look, there's spared no cost on the studio, have they? And I was like, too bad, they only have 2 days to turn it around. And they've spent all the money on, so I feel like it's just Alistair Cook. Just him analysing for the next 5 days, just stuck on that armchair.
They really need another person in that studio, don't they? Yeah.
It's awkward. Rishi
Prasad, to me, has I don't wish him any ill will, but he has all the charisma of a cabbage. Honestly.
And let's be fair. Let's be honest. Cookie hasn't got that much more, and I would like as much as I love him, I would. He's not. You wouldn't call him a natural broadcaster, but I thought he did very well. But he could. He really. Yeah, he needs someone to bounce off, I think. And I think they'll realise that, because if it's Strauss for the next test and then Cook for the one after, it's going to get a bit samey and it's just going to be highlights. But we need to talk about Cook's shirt as well. It's an absolute white shirt with a black inner trim and black buttons and some cutaway collars. He looked like he'd walked into Burton's this morning and been sprayed into some of their gear and then walked straight out. It was incredible.
Either that, or because I assume they're filming in England, he didn't want to wake his wife up and got dressed in the dark. Just whatever suit came out first.
To be fair to Channel 4, as you said, they've had about 48 hours notice for this. I totally agree. They need to have somebody else in the studio. It doesn't even have to be an ex-cricketer. I think they should with my kind of producer hat on. I would just be get me a comedian who's into cricket, because I think that would just break it up. Exactly.
Nish Kumar.
Nish Kumar.
I mean, comedians are totally out of work at the moment, so I'm sure there's no end of people to do it. The other thing I was thinking you could do is you could just beam in people into the screen behind them. And just have kind of a minute or 2 minutes with them and just react to that. Because I
thought you were talking Tupac hologram style.
The ghost of Colin Cowdrey.
I was going to say Colin Cowdrey. Christ, can you imagine?
I was going to say, it'd be interesting to see if, obviously it probably wouldn't happen, if there was any delay of the game, if the weather, can you imagine just them two in the studio together? Six, just going like Hartridge vibes, trying to no dead air.
They're going straight to Friends then, aren't they, for 2 hours? There's no way they're doing that to Cookie.
They don't have any highlights of previous tests to show, so it's like 2005 Ashes. And then the Friends episode where Ross plays rugby, because that's the closest they've got to it.
Oh yeah, I just love a Mark Nicholas montage from the early 21st century of that would be.
Go on, James.
So just before I forget, I found an encouraging stat for England fans that England have never lost a test when Root has scored a century.
Love that.
Which I think is good news.
Can I just say, right, we need to wrap this up in a minute or two, but my worry is that England mismanage it from this position. I actually think 400 is too much. I think they should get to about 350, somewhere between 350 and 400. If declare and then put them into bat, because England need to get 20 wickets on this to win this, right? So 5 days is a long time, but
I take a draw for the first test anyway.
I'd like 600 miles in those bowlers' legs, grind them into the dust and show them that it can be done. And then all the thoughts about England's fallibility goes, because if the groundsmen then start having to prepare slightly different pitches, it's going to benefit both teams anyway. So I'd love to see a big score, a huge one.
Luke's had some insight.
Well, I was just going to say, I was interested to see what the pitch looked like this morning, because I was just thinking about obviously what England needs to qualify for the test finals.
Yeah.
And then what Australia needs. So I don't know if they've what India needs. I don't know if
New Zealand are guaranteed, aren't they?
Yeah, New Zealand guaranteed. Yeah. It's Australia can win it, pending. There's so many different connotations for it, but I don't know whether the pitch has been sort of prepared with a draw in mind for the first. I don't know.
So you're saying India could shithouse it?
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say shithouse it, but I feel like for them, they from India's point of view, they just don't want to lose the first test. So pitch, obviously, it looks quite flat. It looks like a good batting wicket. Whether it takes a lot of spin later on in day 3, 4, and into 5 when it starts to deteriorate a bit, it'd be interesting to see. But I think England having 2 spinners and Root who can bowl a bit. I think
he's an all-rounder, mate. I've said this.
Well, I think England just winning the toss is the main thing now, because obviously you can get, we've got the position to get a big score. 400 to 500, I think would be, par for the course on that wicket to start, and then hopefully you can start in India's first innings. Hopefully, get into them early doors and then put them on the back foot.
One more thing before we go, and also after seeing what Jimmy did with like nothing, like just purely based on his wrist, on his skill and everything, which we spoke about briefly last time. But like, I do have faith that we can. As I said, I settled for a draw for this one, but I do have faith. Like, if Jimmy's on that sort of form, that whatever the pitch, we can bowl them out and win it. So,
but with the pitch, this is the first time that groundsman's prepared a test pitch, and it could end up being his last.
Yeah. And on that note,
thanks for listening today, everyone. This was the first Murali Daily. Please do subscribe. We're also on Twitter, quite active on Twitter, at the Murali End. Was it Murali End? It's just Murali End, isn't it? There's no that.
At Murali End, yeah.
Yeah. We're also on Instagram and Facebook as well, so look us up and give us a follow.